Hey, Joshua.
Welcome, Bigge. And
Thank
you
you.
bought a beer. I'm not the only guy drinking in the building. The CEO is drinking
It's
as well.
called
This is
between
great.
two beers. We need to have one beer
Yeah.
each.
Well, I'll drink to that. Skål.
Cheers.
So, Bigge,
Yep.
you took the role at Cleantech Invest almost 2 years ago. And when you started, you had a 5-step plan. Would you mind enlightening us to this
Yeah,
plan?
sure. Well, there was a lot of things we wanted to do, but 5 sort of main points. And I think the first one was really to go from investing to acceleration. It's not like we stopped putting money into firms, but we really wanted to focus our efforts on helping the companies grow. We've managed to do that fairly well, I would say. They've grown some 200% the last 2 years, so that's gone pretty well. Secondly, we wanted to go Nordic. We believe in it a lot. Lassi Nopponen recently wrote a great article about Nordism as a business strategy. And this cross-fertilization between Sweden, Finland, and of course Denmark and Norway even makes a lot of sense for us. So we listed in Stockholm. That went pretty damn well. Third part was actually becoming more of a global firm. You may have noticed listening to the interviews here that a lot of our firms have truly global markets. They're in Africa, China, US. They go to where the demand for what they do is the greatest. So to really help them and be an accelerator, you need to have networks on the markets where they could potentially grow. So we started with these hotspots in Berlin, LA, and Stockholm. But potentially, of course, there's even more of these where we can add value. Fourth and fifth steps are sort of almost a secret. Still, we haven't even communicated them to the market. So I don't know how much I can say about those. I can
Do your best. Do your best.
Well, I can tell you there's more coming. There's 2 really important steps about to happen for Cleantech Invest. One of them is related to internationalization. And the 5th step, I cannot say too much at this point, but there will be a lot of action happening over the coming year. That I can say.
Stay tuned to the press releases then, might I say. How important is the Nordic brand for Cleantech Invest when you're going to these markets outside of the Nordic region?
Well, it's important. We can verify it ourselves from having... You may know that we have a strategic investor on board from China that invested some 4%. It's a huge industrial firm in China. Their motivation for investing in Cleantech Invest was actually to get an edge when they were selling towards customers, that they have some of these potentially really innovative clean technologies from Nordics, that they had access to those. Nuka is now doing a project with them in China, so that's played out well. And we noticed the same in LA, and I noticed it in Germany. Scandinavia has a good reputation. Finland is known for energy efficiency solutions, actually across the globe, I would say. So it's a good starting point to start talking about our companies.
If you do punch in Cleantech into Google, by the way, you will see that Finland is the highest ranking for that term, that search. So yeah, it's in the data. So Cleantech Invest is an active investor, but what does this really mean?
Yeah, well, I would say it means a lot. It means different things for different companies. A lot of these entrepreneurs can probably have different opinions of what it means, but formally we're on the board of all these companies, more or less. But in reality, very little of the work actually happens in the board meetings. I would say it happens between the board meetings. We are probably the most active when the company has challenges. We've helped with packaging, we've even exchanged CEOs, but a lot of it is simply putting these people in front of the right investors or customers. And here we can sometimes do our part in adding something that they might not have come across otherwise. Sometimes we can open some doors that would otherwise not have been opened. I would say that's the main, that's the most important role probably.
So you're not backseat driving?
No, we typically spend our days on the phone trying to get a hold of people.
Sure. So, I mean, here's a wonderful opportunity for the audience. Again, a reminder, any questions for the CEO of Cleantech Invest, please feel free to throw your hands up. He's waiting.
Don't be shy.
Please don't. While the audience is thinking of their questions, and while Facebook Live is thinking of their questions for Bigge Lidgren, so you've done a few things in life so far. I know a little bit about your CV. It's like a odyssey of sorts. Homer could have written it.
I almost have to hide every second thing I've done to not make it seem weird.
You've run a few companies. You yourself have been in the restaurant game. You started the Nordic's biggest Cleantech investor network, Cleantech Scandinavia. You've been with Cleantech Invest now for 2 years. How do you stay motivated and what gets you up in the morning?
A lot of espresso gets me up in the morning. But, well, I've run cafes and I've run a few tech companies. And the thing is, it's easy to get motivated when everything is going well. Everyone probably recognizes that it's not so hard if things are going great. But in startups and in growth companies, there's typically periods when it's not going so well. Some of our greatest stars now have really gone through those periods where it's been really challenging, and I have as well in my companies. And if you're doing something where you don't really believe in the end results, it's really challenging when it's not going well. This is a huge difference for me actually here in Cleantech Invest. When we have challenges, it's a lot easier to just take them on. We have companies that are taking electricity into places in Africa where there was no energy at all before. We have companies that save clothes from going to landfill in the US. We're cutting CO2 in China. It's really easy to get motivated to help them solve those problems. So that's a huge difference for me, actually.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer. Any questions from the audience, please? Anybody? Yeah, this gentleman right here. Thank you.
What sort of synergy do you have in between these companies? Do you have any?
Yeah, that's a really good question because they're fairly different, I would say, in their sectors, of course, and what they target. But surprisingly many in terms of the network. So we have companies that are sort of helping each other sell to customers because they are approaching the same types of customer segment. So that's really a clear way to cooperate. But more importantly, sharing contacts, I would actually say, is the biggest synergies between them. So we try to get them to share contacts between each other because when you're trying to get investments, it tends to be really valuable to be able to share those contacts between each other. So that's a big part of it. Yeah, and then selling together. Those two would be the most important.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, this young lady here.
Thank you. The air pollution problem in China is huge. Do you think today's technology we can solve the outdoor air problem? Or how long it will take to your estimation?
Well, that's a big question. So the question was the air pollution problem in China, if we can solve that within some reasonable time frame. Well, having been to China and having companies also active there, I agree with it. It's a huge problem, especially in the Beijing area. Well, let me point then to Synergies. I think they will be on stage later being interviewed, or have they?
Well, yes, they will.
They will be.
Yeah.
So we have a company that saves energy in compressed air in China. And this is a huge bearer of energy in the manufacturing industry is compressed air. Synergies saves energy in that, some 20-30%. That energy is typically produced using coal-fired power plants. So they actually cut a lot of the CO2 where it's needed the most, I would say, in China and in the Beijing area. So if you have a flat screen, it's most likely now being produced using less CO2 thanks to Synergies. They have the world's largest flat screen manufacturer as a customer. So, well, we're doing our best there. I, however, think that there will also need to be a change in the transport industry so that it's more electric vehicles and less gasoline-driven cars to actually get the city-level pollution down in China.
So Synergies and Tesla are like a marriage that we're just waiting to sort out.
They are. Yep.
Okay, great. That's good. Anybody else in the audience? Have we got any other questions for the CEO, Bigge? He's really keen to talk. I can't even keep him quiet most of the time. Nobody? Look, I think that's about it tonight, Bigge.
That's it.
Thank
I've
you so
talked enough.
much. Go.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget your beer.
I won't.